After many, many long years of waiting, the hit up-and-comer Pizza Tower has finally been released, and it is everything I was hoping for and more. Pizza Tower is an unfiltered, fast-as-hell platformer inspired by the Wario Lands of old, mostly 4. The general flow of the game is you enter a level, blaze through it, or pass through at your own pace, and then you backtrack all the way through it under a time limit. The levels are all extremely unique feeling and feature all sorts of gimmicks and ways to make it feel fresh constantly, which actually directly leads me to potentially the most important element of Pizza Tower. The level design is amazing and is really what makes it click. I'll talk about the other elements that are also all top-notch, but the levels you play through feel so thoughtful, so carefully crafted that I need to jump right to it. All of the levels in the game are linear, just by design. However, in some of them you're definitely more meant to engage with a puzzle or sprawling environment that's built of subsections and walls that can only be passed in specific ways. And others are pretty blatantly just trying to push you forward as just fast as you can. These sprawling levels generally focus on a couple of varying gimmicks within them, while also overlapping them until around the end, where you're juggling multiple new mechanics all at once. These gimmicks are always introduced to you in a very natural but educational manner. I could probably sit here and do the old Egoraptor Mega Man video thing, where I show you the first example and how it teaches you the second, where it's still holding your hand but makes you work for it a little more. Then it implements the new mechanic in a difficult environment, and by that point, you probably understand it well enough for it to not feel unfair. In the maze-like levels I'm focusing on here, this general formula will occur multiple times and is usually done in tandem with itself, so perhaps while you're at step 3 of learning a mechanic, this will be taking place in the environment that step 2 of another mechanic is occurring. This situation is a lot more comfortable for the player, even though it probably up front seems a little overwhelming. But it's just taught to you so naturally that it's really just smart design. You're constantly being strung along, taught, and directed on where to go, even in the least linear levels. Every level is also filled with very well-placed secrets, always having cues for them, either in the case of visuals leading you to them, or just the paths that feel kinda natural for your brain to take. Another important piece of level design is that all of the levels in the game are actually quite short once you understand them. On your first run-through, some may feel so massive, but once you've reached the point where you know where you're going, they're more like racetracks that only last a couple of minutes. This can lead to 2 primary effects. The first is that there's kind of a sense of magic to be felt when you blaze through something quickly after it originally seemed so large and confusing. The second is that this allows for the ability to have those micro improvements that some players really strive for. It really lets you kind of just hone this level where you feel excited after doing it even only a couple seconds faster than before. And replaying them isn't a chore because of how just short they are to begin with. I think the best level that I can use an example of this is Golf. Golf is a level that, on its face, should seem extremely gimmicky and unlike everything else. Within it, as you're passing through like normal, you have to hit this nerd cheese grease ball and get them into the hole, or hoop, while hopefully keeping yourself under or on par. If you make par, you get a Primo Bird, which gives good points. This golf playing mechanic should really just destroy the pace and feel of this level. I definitely thought I would dread it for being so unlike the rest. However, the way it is all designed, you can actually play through the level like pretty much any other, and if you keep your flow up correctly, you'll be getting the Primo Bergs without having to actually stop and go for it. The level ends up not even feeling notably gimmicky compared to some others. It all feels so fluid and just non-obtuse, even when the golfing is getting mixed in with other gimmicks like enemies that are going to mess with the ball for you, or Peppino getting thrown around as a ball himself. The escape sequence even forces you to play golf, and it still, under a time limit, doesn't feel obtrusive. In short, golf, with any less care put into it, would be the Black Sheep gimmick level, that is either maligned or beloved. However, because it's so thoughtfully designed, it just feels like another high-quality level. It's now time I talk about how we move Peppino. They weren't lying in the Steam store description. Peppino really do be surprisingly fast and agile. Your moveset in Pizza Tower is both vast and incredibly versatile. There's very little Peppino isn't capable of in his base form. To break it down, you'll be in 2 primary states normally, walking and running. I'm choosing to divide these because your actions out of them are pretty different. While running, you'll adjust through a few tiers of speed, the most important being Mach 3, which is when you'll be able to break through metal blocks and will destroy enemies just by running through them. While in this state, there are a shitload of extra options. While walking, you're a little less unwieldy and can do a more standard crawl. Universally, you can also always grab. The grab is extremely powerful as it shoots you sideways and gives you a large speed boost. You can also uppercut by inputting the grab upwards. The grab also allows for some extra tech. The two most useful pieces of it that I've made great use of is using the dash to gain speed quicker than average and using it to instantly cancel momentum. The first is achieved by doing a short hop and grabbing just before you land. If performed correctly, you'll enter Mach 3 just a little bit faster than you do if you were to run normally. This sometimes allows you to handle enemies and scare them in places that you normally wouldn't, and can let you just generally get better in the flow. It can be instrumental for things like P-rank runs where speed matters a lot. The ability to instantly cancel your momentum is a little less major in my play, but it still has a lot of utility. It's performed by grabbing then tapping the opposite direction. This is most useful in times where you're going fast and need to change direction quickly while having zero risk of sliding off. I didn't cover all of the things you can do because the moveset is so vast, but what's important is that it's extremely tight to control. When I'm trying to race through a level, I never feel like the game isn't doing exactly what I tell it to, which is so important for the speeds at which you'll be moving. This combination of the controls and level design will now lead to the important part of this video. How does it feel to play Pizza Tower? The feel of Pizza Tower is unlike much else I've played in how powerfully the game evokes the emotions it does. Anxiety, panic, adrenaline, motivation. There's all sorts of feelings I can attribute to Pizza Tower, and here is where I'll try to cover them in some sense of order. The first feeling you'll have when you play Pizza Tower is that you suck at this game. They did an amazing job at making you feel like you are awful at games and it's like the first game you've ever played, but it doesn't feel frustrating. I'm just talking about the ways that the levels will have you bang headfirst into walls, the way you can clearly see that it's encouraging you to move, but you aren't quite there yet, so you're kind of just fumbling through it. When I was first starting, I'd very often get into a groove then be blindsided by the next screen and fuck it all up. The important factor here that I think makes it not frustrating is that the punishment for failure is extremely low. When you're just starting out, the only real loss from a mess up is just losing your speed and maybe your bearings. You aren't forced to restart or even have something like a health bar to worry about. You just get to see the fantastic animations of Peppino getting messed up in all sorts of ways. Maybe your combo meter will call you lame too. Once you get over that hump though, and you're starting to make it through the levels a little less bumpily, you'll get to experience what I would call Pizza Tower's first specialty, which is that backtracking through a level to escape I've talked about before. Once you're at the end of a level, you'll find Pillar John and the music turns off. It's this strange eerie feeling compared to everything else in the game because of how quiet it is. And then, when you bust through him, the clock is ticking and the music starts pumping and you know that you have to get out now. This is where panic really sets in for the first time while playing. Doing anything on a time limit can induce that anxiety in the player, but with the tone of it all and the music going, it really just kicks it up. This panic is communicated all through the escape sequence as well, in the expressions of Peppino, the friendly characters popping in to point you where to go, also looking very concerned. And actually, I'm gonna have to sidetrack with you here because, oh my god, have you looked at this game? I bet all of you watching are surprised that I took so long to talk about it, but I can't wait any longer. The visual style of Pizza Tower is genuinely on par with the likes of Cuphead, and it deserves that similar level of respect. Speaking of Cuphead, I'd like to use that game as almost a comparison in a sense. Specifically, people like to attribute the visuals of Cuphead to be kind of that idealist old school rubber bandy cartoons of like the 30s or something, where everything is moving and bouncing with this cheerful, clean manner. Pizza Tower, though, kind of represents that newer-ish age of cartoons like the 90s, Ren and Stimpy. It's grimy. Things are moving and stretching around in exaggerated, gross-out ways. The characters are all absurdly over-expressive, and it just feels greasy in how everything moves and interacts. But in a really good way. The love and care put into Pizza Tower's animations is some of the most impressive work I've ever seen. Peppino has a variant of animation to match, in my experience, literally every single situation. Oh, are you jumping from a crouch? That's a new animation. Are you in the middle of a long combo? Now your idle stance is different. Did you just slam straight into the wall or a ground? Well, there's something for that too. He's even got a different manner of falling if you employ that trick I mentioned earlier, where you grab and then cancel it by tapping the opposite direction. Not to mention the ever-changing live Peppino reaction in the top right, which just really serves for flavor, but it features some insane expressions and feelings that are also always adapting to your current situation. He'll grow more and more intense if you're blazing through loads of enemies. I'm not well versed enough in the techniques or artistry involved to create such intricate and expressive animations within a game that act all so dynamically. However, I can comment that from the perspective of a player and spectator, it sometimes doesn't look like a video game. Everything is so perfect in the visuals that it genuinely feels like I'm playing a cartoon that is adapting to what I do. These visuals translate while playing to really helping emphasize the feeling of the game. Returning back to that panic in the escape sequence, you can feel that it's palpable in every character on the screen. Peppino especially looks like he's about to have a heart attack. It really makes you want to get out of there. Similarly, it really just makes this all feel so charming. The stupid rats and other enemies all have qualities to them that make them feel so alive because of how they're visually depicted. A really good detail is when you're running near max speed, enemies just stop what they're doing and gaze in fear. This alone does so much to make the player feel good, as if the rules are breaking because, holy shit, that guy is going fast. Another element that really ties into the feeling of the game is the music. Again, this is something I actually touched on earlier with the music that plays during the escape sequence. But to further dwell on that, the soundtrack of Pizza Tower is something that underwent a lot of iterations and changes, and in the end, it paid off amazingly. Every single track just feels perfectly hand-picked to its corresponding level or situation, really giving the exact intended tone to the player. Ranging from the goofiness involved with that golf level I went in extensive detail about previously, to a groovy off-kilter jam that takes you all over the place to match the planet-hopping magic of Deep Dish 9. To the Waste Yard's haunting electric guitar piercing through the ambience of the track that just really gives this area the soul it deserves. I could do this song and dance for pretty much every level in the game. I'm not going to for time's sake, but just know that I could. This further segues me into what will be the final part of this video, which is how it feels to P-rank a level. And I don't know if words are actually the best way to start describing how it feels to complete that P-rank. Music is. The Death That I Deserve Ioli is the song that plays when you start up the lap 2 of your escape. And I've never heard a song that better describes the feelings felt while playing a game. To be upfront, I'm going to describe what it feels like to P-rank a level entirely through the lens of what your lap 2 feels like, because to me, it is the culmination of the huge mix of emotions involved. Lap 2 is what I would call Pizza Tower's second specialty. To start, I'll explain what a P rank entails. To obtain a P rank in a level, you have to get a large amount of score. I think the exact number changes for every level. It's generally in the ballpark of like 17 to 20,000 points. You also need to get every secret. That means all of the secret areas, all of the top ends, and the secret treasure, and run lap 2 of the escape sequence. You'll have to perform these while also never dropping your combo once. This is a pretty monumental task, and I just want to say, don't let anyone tell you this isn't hard. Maintaining your combo through a level doesn't demand literal perfection, but some small mistakes can easily ruin your run. I am not someone who generally goes for these kinds of things while playing games. However, Pizza Tower makes it feel so fucking good that I felt compelled to pull it off on every level. By the time I upload this, I will doubt that I will have completed every level in the game, but I'll hopefully be pretty close. I think the reason it feels so good is largely like mostly everything I've talked about in this video all coming together, specifically regarding the controls and level design feeling so amazing to use and navigate with. But also, damn, that lap 2, the way my heart gets pumping when I enter the pizza portal to begin it, with the startup of the music playing, it's such an adrenaline hit. I think a big thing is the tone of the song, especially compared to the one that plays during your first half of the escape. The first song, It's Pizza Time, feels like a ticking time bomb. It's anxiety-inducing and screams to you to escape, get out. I've described this earlier. But The Death That I Deserve Aioli, it's blood-pumping in a triumphant way. It's encouraging you to follow through. You know full well at this point you can pull off the escape, so the game is rewarding you mentally for going back around and motivating you to do so. Outside of the music, I consider lap 2 to be actually generally the easiest part of a P rank. It really feels like a victory lap. By this point, you're largely extremely familiar with the layout of the level, where the traps and enemies are. You just have to blaze on through it. However, like always, there's that slight chance of a slip-up ruining all of your hard work. I found myself in many situations where I'm so jacked up with my heart pumping that I make a mistake. I slam into a wall, I start panicking, but I recover and push forward. These errors don't feel demotivating in the slightest. You feel so intensely powerful and encouraged at that point that no matter how many times you get knocked down or slam into a wall, you keep going. You grab those clocks, destroy some cheesy enemy, land the clutch parry. You do whatever it takes to finish this second lap. I swear when I am on that final stretch and I have the music blaring in my ears, my third eye awakens and I do some things under pressure that would take me far much more mental effort to perform in any other circumstance. P ranking in Pizza Tower achieves the ultimate goal for a game like this. It makes you feel as one with the systems and mechanics, where you are moving without any thought and your autopilot is so in sync with Peppino that you're just subconsciously going ham. It has never once felt frustrating to me going for these. I've always been told by the game through the systems that I can do it, and I always end up doing it. Pizza Tower is a triumph in game design and development. I remember day one of release, I was watching a streamer play, and he said that the game was extremely well realized, and I think that's the best way to describe it. Every single piece of Pizza Tower was so lovingly handcrafted to become the best game it could be, and those long, many years of effort have paid off in a strong contender for my favorite game of the year, and easily one of the best platformers ever made. I'm glad it seems the game, by and large, is garnering the respect and attention it deserves, because McPig and everyone else working with them have created a modern masterpiece. I didn't even talk about the excellent boss fights within the game, which, depending to the reception on this video, I'm hoping I could do that in the future, because they deserve just as much attention as the platforming levels. Thank you for watching, please subscribe if you'd like more, and like the video if you did.